Hey there, artists. Today we're going to be making some amazing Kusama inspired polka dot pumpkins with a printed background. So follow along with me and I'll show you all the steps. For these Kusama inspired pumpkins, the first thing I'm going to do is get some different squares of paper and choose my color. I'm thinking, got lots of choices here. Today, I think I'm going to use this peach color. I really like it. So I'm going to take my peach square and I'm going to put it right here where we can see it. And I'm going to grab a pencil. Now we're going to draw a basic pumpkin shape, and we don't want it to be teeny tiny on this big square. We want to use as much space as possible. I feel like the best way to start a pumpkin is a nice big oval shape. And then we're just going to kind of extend that oval shape going along. Now I'm going to push a little darker so you can see it on the camera, but on your paper, you should try to push very lightly because that way you'll see those amazing dots and you won't see your pencil mark as much. So use a very light dot. So the next thing I'm going to do is just kind of go along next door and have that next section go down and then back up. And then it's gonna go down and back up. And probably one more. And this one I do a little bit higher so it looks like kind of that back part of the pumpkin. So this goes up higher and then goes down. I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. So it goes out and down, kind of curves back up into the bottom, out and down. It's getting a little taller as I go up here and it's getting shorter down here. And here's one more, out and down. Now we're gonna tuck the stem kind of down in here. And to give it that 3D look like she had, we're going to just add a little section back here and a little section back here to show the back of the pumpkin. Now that's a really straight pumpkin. I know when we observed some of her art, we might see that some of hers kind of look a little more wavy or wobbly. And we can do that too. Let me grab a different page. If you're wanting to do that more wobbly, wavy style, you're just going to draw, instead of a perfect oval, you're going to kind of have a wobbly center. And then as you go along, the lines are going to wobble along next to it. So we'll go out and kind of follow that line, out and kind of follow that line, out and kind of follow that line. So we're still getting that rounded shape, but it has that kind of squished look that we saw in her pictures. Doing the same on this side. Goes out, gets a little taller, comes down, gets a little shorter down here. If it gets taller here and shorter here, it gives it that round illusion. One more. And then the same thing, we'll tuck that stem in there. And then we'll add that back, maybe two sections, kind of showing where it connects in the back. So now comes the fun part. Whichever kind of pumpkin you have drawn, we're going to grab some different size black markers and start adding in the dots that give a lot of shape and pattern to these. All right, I got a big marker, a medium marker, and a tiny pen. And we are going to be doing some different size dots on these pumpkins, kind of like we saw with Kusama. We noticed that she uses larger dots in the center, and as she gets to the edge, it gets smaller. And then when you see these, since these little ridges are kind of behind, it's like it starts with the bigger dot and then it gets smaller to the end. So we're going to be trying to do a similar style. So we're going to put those bigger dots in the center using this nice big marker. Okay, Now we're going to do the same kind of pattern on each section, but these are going to be kind of tucked behind. So we're going to do our big ones kind of like a semicircle. So as they go down this line, they're still our biggest ones, but they're going to be kind of tucked in the back. So we really only see half of that circle. And I love the illusion of movement this kind of gives. It looks like they're kind of exploding out, and it just looks so cool. I'll do the same on this one. Oh, that's a noisy marker. Okay. So I start with these bigger ones, and then I'm going to switch over to my smaller Sharpie, and I'm going to do some smaller dots going down the side of this. Almost like doing a Zentangle. It's like a really simple line and circle that we're doing, and it's kind of a relaxing drawing, and they end up looking so cool and such fun pictures for the fall. So I've got my medium line there of dots, and then I'm going to switch to going even smaller. Following along that section of line there, I can then do some really tiny dots where I'm just gently touching the paper. And then if I really want to get tiny, these little micron pens have the tiniest little ends there. And I can just put a little teeny tiny dot as I go up. Beautiful. That looks so cool. So I'm going to continue that pattern going this direction and going this direction to fill in my pumpkin. All right, these are starting to look so cool. I love the way these bigger dots kind of show where the line of the pumpkin is, and then they fade into the smaller dots. We're going to continue doing that for all of the sections of our pumpkin. So we're going to continue showing the bigger dots and then the kind of medium dots. And then the slightly smaller dots. The tinier dots. And the teeny tiny dots. And then I start again with the bigger Sharpie, doing the half circle mark, showing that those big ones are hidden behind that little section. And then making a little smaller of a dot. And just keeping with that same pattern we talked about. And we're going to use that to complete the pumpkins, except for the stem. And something we noticed about the way she does the stem is she switches the positive and the negative image. So instead of having the dots be what she draws with the marker, she instead draws the outline of the dots, leaving the dots the color of the paper, and then coloring around them with the black marker. So that will be the step after this. So right now we are just finishing these patterns until we have every section of our pumpkin completed. And these end up looking so cool. Great decorations for fall, thinking about September, October, and November. These are great. So go ahead and finish making your dots, going from large to smaller and eventually teeny tiny. Wow, filling in all those dots sure does change the way our pumpkin looks and really gives it this kind of fun movement just from the dots. I thought this part was kind of hard to think about up here, but again, we're going to want to do the same thing where it's the bigger dot and I just keep it in this section. So the bigger dot is in the center, and then from the sides it's going to get smaller. So we'll go smaller on the sides and then just the tiny dots on the edge. And we'll do the same up here. So we'll have our bigger dots kind of through the middle, imagining that this section kind of goes back behind. And then I'm going to put smaller, and then getting the tiny ones. Okay, so now the stem I thought was another part that we should talk about. So the same pattern with bigger dots in the center, but we're not coloring them in. We're going to keep them open. And then smaller on that side, and smaller on this side, and then a lot smaller. Now what we're going to do to make those stand out is we're going to color the rest of that in. So I'm just going to color in the space in here, leaving the white dots, well I guess the peach dots to show, and putting the black around the dots. So this can take a little time because you don't want to accidentally color inside. You can see I'm just kind of slowly going around my dots with black, and it's really making them kind of pop out, which looks so cool. So you can go ahead and finish that part, just going around with your marker gently in between your circles to finish the stem. This is looking so cool. The next thing we're going to do is cut out this amazing pumpkin and set it to the side so we can start working on printing our background. So just go ahead and cut around the outside of your pumpkin, carefully going around those edges. All right, it's all cut out and I'm ready to create a background. I'm going to choose a different color square for the background. But I don't want to leave it just plain. I would like to decorate this background with some printing. So I'm going to show you some different options we have. So, and you could have chosen all kinds of different background colors. So here's some different possible background colors. I think it looks best to choose a color that is across from your pumpkin color on the color wheel, looking for that complementary color. So this is kind of an orangey peach, and the opposite of that would be like my blues and purples. So I went for this purple shade myself. And now we're gonna do some printing. So I've just taken some black paint, and I could just do a simple print with this cup. So if I wanted my background to look like that, I will take this and I'm going to do my whole background. That actually looks really cool, and it's so simple. It's just a paper cup. So this is one option. I could have just a circle background. I have other lids. I have like a bigger one if you wanted to do like a bigger circle. So you just need to kind of grip the edge, dip into the paint, and then you could do kind of bigger circles if that's what you'd prefer. That could make a really cool background for your pumpkin. So either small, big, or you could do a combination. That's an awesome printed background. I also have some different stamps. So we could try, I have the star stamp, so I'm just gonna kind of gently, I kind of want to tap it around and make sure I don't have too much paint. So kind of rub it on my plate, and I could be putting the stars for the background. This does not need to look perfect. I just think that the printed background looks really cool when you hold your pumpkin up in front of that. So you could be doing the stars. And I have all kinds of stamps. So that's an option. I saw this mountain stamp. So you could dip that in there. That could be a cool background. So lots of different options. If you choose a smaller stamp, it's going to probably take you a little more time to cover your background. So I could go just kind of this oval shape. That looks pretty cool too. So I've got lots of different options for my background. And I think, I don't know, I can kind of hold this up and see. I like the stars. I honestly kind of like the big circles behind my dots. So I'm going to take these examples and get them out of our way. And I'm going to get my actual paper right here, set it down. And I'm going to cover it in my print. So I'm just going to dip my cup. And I could keep them in straight rows like this, or I could overlap them, which I think I'm going to do because I think it makes the background more interesting. So I'm just going to kind of overlap. Whoops. Sure I'm getting to the edge there. All right. I love that printed background. So now let's Set this to the side. Let this dry a little bit. I'm going to put glue on the back of this, and then I'm going to put that central in the middle of the page. So there's my background and here's my foreground. So now on the back of your pumpkin, you're going to get some glue. I'm going to use a glue stick, and I'm just going to go all the way around the edge to make sure that the sides don't come up. And then I just do a line kind of through the middle here. All right, and I am ready to glue this to my printed background. There's that awesome printed background. And we'll take our Kusama inspired pumpkin and set it right on there. Got a little paint on myself. Not quite dry. All right, and we rub to make sure it sticks on there. And there is our beautiful picture. I think that turned out so super cool. We can also go ahead and take one of our markers and we can sign our name at the bottom. Awesome job. I can't wait to see the pumpkins you create.